He was all new to us. We just knew very little about him. He came with two students from the Hebrew Union College, where he had spent 5 years. He came to the United States in 1940. He was 33 years old, and so one way of looking at it is that this was a midpoint in what turned out to be his lifespan, because he then lived in the United States from 1940 to 1972, and we are now meeting on the 40th anniversary of his death. When he came, we knew that he came from the Hebrew Union College, which we had no real contact there in Cincinnati. They were Reformed. We were not Reformed the whole bit. We knew he was a scholar. We knew that he was introduced by the members of faculty, and he came from a Hasidic family. Somebody found out as he was being introduced, but he was not going to teach Hasidism, which was a disappointment, because those of us who were closer to graduation, I graduated in 47, were unhappy that all through the years that we were at the seminary, nobody ever mentioned Hasidism, nobody ever mentioned Kabbalah or anything of that sort. This was not the approach of that particular educational institution. He began to teach, and it became clear from those who were sitting in his class — I was not one because I must have had other commitments — that he was a very interesting person, very warm and very easy for the students to get to know, but that his lectures were not organized at all.
Neither were his books.
And neither were his books at a later point, for sure. And that's really all I knew. And when I graduated in 47, I knew only one other fact about him that was important, and that is that he had given a talk in Yiddish in downtown Manhattan less than 6 months after the end of World War II, and this was a talk on what later was published as The Earth of the Lord's, the Inner World of Eastern European Jewry. So I knew he'd given that talk and that he had Eastern European roots. And that's about it, except that when I was graduating in 47, I asked whether I could meet him for lunch. And I met him for lunch, and that was a turning point in my life. He spoke about Buber and Rosenzweig, and I had never heard those names mentioned at the seminary. He began recommending books to read. I jotted them down on a slip of paper. I put it in my wallet and carried that around in my wallet for well over 25 years. It was my introduction to what I had not been taught at the seminary. He knew that that Esther and I were going to Israel, and we talked a little bit about that too. He had not been, but he obviously had been in touch with people. I now know he had a very intensive correspondence with Buber, who had come to Israel in 1938. So that's about the best way of answering your question.